We're down to the quarterly update from the Sierra Vista Economic Development Foundation, and we have a trio here today. I'm not sure who's gonna be briefing. Oh, well, I didn't see a quartet. Ron, how are you?
Thank you.
Please recycle. Absolutely.
Please recycle.
There's a good green for those grocery bags.
Do you have one for Gwen? I'll make sure she gets it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I apologize for not getting these out to you yesterday. I was homesick. But I'm all better today, in case you're wondering. Okay, just to start with the update, here are the 7 topics that I'll be talking about today, just as our project overview for the consistency of presentations. Sorry, having a little technical difficulty here. The first one is our business complex overview. Again, you all have known we've been in our building for quite a while. It continues to do very well. We have 5 offices occupied and 1 cubicle occupied. One company moved out due to them losing their contract on Fort Huachuca. What I really want to point out here is the collaboration that's happened throughout our building and throughout the entire Economic Development Foundation, if you will. And I always get up here and I speak about partnerships and effective partnerships, and this is another one. With this partnership, glad to see Mark Schmidt here today. He's been a vital part of our business complex overview and providing the businesses the counseling that they need. Jointly, we have hired a P-Tech counselor, and we've talked about this before. That is the Procurement Technical Assistance Center counselor that specifically works with those going after a government contract. Now, having said that, we know what's going on in Fort Huachuca. I've just let you know that one company has moved out because they lost their government contract. They lost their contract with Fort Huachuca. What's important to remember here, and as we bring our counselor in, is that a lot of the companies that are starting here, expanding and contracting, we're having them go nationwide. So their contracts may not be with Fort Huachuca, but we want them to be housed here. We see that reverse all the time. We see that the headquarters are back east, and yet they might move a small contingency out to our area to work on a Fort Huachuca contract. We want to encourage the same thing within our building so that we're drawing from the labor pool that we already hear and the natural talent that we have in this area so that those companies stay here, office here, start off in our building where again they can fail safe within our offices, and then they get those contracts outside of our area. We find that the numbers are significant for the companies that are here, that the contracts that are awarded within the state of Arizona, that those aren't actual Arizona companies that are getting them. So we're trying to put a spin on that and having those companies now work and be headquartered here in Sierra Vista while having the work either in New Mexico, Virginia, or wherever they may be getting that government contract. But again now, that emphasis is switching, and we do have our P-Tech counselor on board. They should be on board in the next 2 weeks, correct? Correct. Final interviews are happening this week. So just another example of a great partnership that we've had. And I would encourage, if you have questions throughout these, it's easier to do on these projects than saving them for the end. The next, we've given a lot of talk about Fort Huachuca and what's happening there. You know that the Sierra Vista Economic Development Foundation has been an active coordinator in the Huachuca 50s efforts. I'm going to take this moment to thank my board and especially the leadership of Kevin Peterson, who serves as the president of Huachuca 50. He has helped me greatly. We all know that on the ground, it's myself and my administrative assistant, but behind I have a very strong board, and several of my board members are here. And without the work they do, I could not do my work. So really the staff is greater than that when we reach out to our board presidents and our board members. So thank you, Kevin, for the work that you do around this. in pointing us into the right direction. An added piece to this, in the past you've seen the contact, the administrative association, hosting and coordinating, but the new one that we add on to here is the partnerships that have happened through this. We are now working and have direct updates both from the Southern Arizona Defense Alliance and the Arizona Military Affairs Commission. While we don't serve on those, the Sierra Vista Economic Development Foundation doesn't. We have board members that do, and I teleconference into those meetings. So again, we have that direct partnership with them. We are also meeting with the elected officials, again, through myself and through my board members. We're quite active out there. And as you talked about in your meeting that you had on July 2nd, where we were present as well, this effort around Fort Huachuca is going to be more than just a letter-writing campaign. We need to really reach out to all of our partners throughout the state and throughout the nation to make that impact. So again, we're playing a major role in this. Moving forward on the 4 pillars test range, I often hear how our economy is not diversified. It's all relying on Fort Huachuca, and I need to tell you that is not true. We have done a great job of diversifying our economy and moving forward, and one of those would be the unmanned aircraft systems. And again, thank you, Rick Mueller. At your guidance, we started this 2 years ago, this process. You tasked the EDF to explore this option and get involved, and I think we've done more than get involved, but to be the state leader and now throughout the nation, quite frankly. So we were issued our special use permit on April 9th. You've all read about that in the paper. The partnerships, again, that we have formed, we have several of the major universities that want to come on board in partnership with us. It's a very solid partnership that'll form from that. And also, we are forming those partnerships with other areas throughout the county. So it is not just out at 4 Pillars, but it is at Benson, it's in Wilcox, and it's in Douglas. So it is taking advantage of our entire region. This expansion has happened countrywide, countywide, nationwide, and also through the Aerospace States Association, which I'll speak to a little bit more later. And we're readying the site. We're in the process of securing the, and I always say it wrong, it's the construction trailer, correct, Lynn? I think I got it right this time. It's a construction trailer that'll be out there and the necessary equipment for the companies. And we are working with the FAA on that second runway out at 4 Pillars. We really continue to make a difference inside this Aerospace and Defense Commission. I was named to the commission, serve on that and represent the region, and quite frankly my role there is on the unmanned systems. I can tell you that Arizona is ranked number 5 in the nation to benefit economically from the UAS industry. We continue to work on that. That has been a bulk of our work. And as we say number 5 through the state, most of the work would happen again in our region of Cochise County. Every day that the FAA does not make a move on this, we are losing $27.6 million a day. So just think about that and think about that economic impact that it is having or not having within our region. Again, when we talk about diversifying, here's a natural fit. We are a member of the Association of Unmanned Vehicle Systems International conference that I attended in Florida. We can tell from the conferences that I've been attending that the small businesses are shrinking that are there because they are, again, waiting for the FAA to make those rulings that are not happening. And so they're losing dollars, and they're not able to contribute in the manner that they would like. However, there's much more overseas participation than there has been before. So we like to see that number grow there as well. One of the contacts that I was able to make when I was there, I was introduced to the Lieutenant Governor of Alaska, the Governor of Nevada, and the Governor of Utah. They all serve on an with the Aerospace States Association. Had a meeting with them today just on how do we get the industry moving, how do we form a consortium. We are planning to have a foreign investment symposium in the D.C. area in March of 2015, and really making a name for, again, aerospace and defense, and using that overseas and bringing overseas companies in and then representing our regions, as you will. So again, truly diversifying our economy down here. Another project that the EDF has continued to work on is the West End Loan Program. We've redesigned it and reintroduced it, and we've just made a new loan out to a Slice of Heaven Bakery and Cafe for $30,000, and we have 2 more applications in the pipeline. I put this one up here, and we haven't talked about it for a while. Whenever I've put this up in the past, people have said this again. Well, I'm going to tell you this again and this always. It's part of diversifying our economy. You talk about Northrop Grumman, you immediately make the assumption that all their contracts are with Fort Huachuca, but a lot of the work they do is overseas and out of the state. So when we look at that, continue to see that there's 250 high-tech jobs with $13.7 million in annual payroll. The EDF plays a vital role in making sure that they're happy tenants, that they continue to stay in this region. At any moment, they can move out. They can move their operations anywhere else. We make sure that not only are they happy within their facilities, but if they need any work, labor force, if they need some legislative issues solved, if they've got contracting issues, we make sure that we're right here to help them. And then the same goes with Aegis. We continue to make sure that Aegis stays within our community. Again, any of these companies can move out at a moment's notice. So the retention and expansion is crucial to this. And we haven't talked about this for a while, but I have to tell you that Lynn personally has dedicated, I don't know, would you say 80 hours? At least 80 hours just to these 2 contracts and making sure these 2 tenants are happy. It's taken a lot of time that goes on behind this. So while you see these and say, oh, that happened years ago, it continues to be on the forefront of what we do to make sure that these companies are happy in our community and that they're retained in our community, and by them being here, they serve as an attraction to other companies that come. So we do more than just the lease agreements with them.
Do you want to say anything about Aegis expansion?
I think it's been covered in the paper that they've been expanded, you know, bringing 200 new jobs, but that number fluctuates. So that's why I stay with the 530 jobs, because they are seasonal employers. So oftentimes you'll hear somebody say, "Oh, Aegis has let go of 200 people." Well, that's because a contract had ended and another contract is coming up behind it where they're hiring another 200. But in this case, they did just receive another contract for another 200 jobs, but I would tell you that annual jobs is probably still right around 530. It might bump up to 700. We're not really sure of what that happens. There's a contract that they're working out there. But thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, we've spent some time talking about the foreign trade zone, and you all know that it's a lengthy process of what goes on in here. Presentation was done. Did I skip a slide? Or I'm skipping a slide here on my notes. Apologize. I did a presentation to the City of Bisbee, their economic group, on whether Foreign Trade Zone 139 would be something for them to take advantage of. And I think after their discussions, they've really tabled that, because you have to have much more than just the designation of a foreign trade zone. You have to have the company that's interested in coming in. You have to make sure that all the taxing districts have signed off. You need to make sure that it's a good fit for the community. Having said that, we have 2 companies right now that are in the pipeline of taking advantage of the foreign trade zone. They are both in Sierra Vista. One is out in Hereford and one is in Sierra Vista proper. So we're walking them through the processes. I can't divulge any more information to you due to confidentiality, but we are working on that as well. The EDF, we will be re-examining where do we want to go with that foreign trade zone and the expansion of it. It is a $5,000 investment that the EDF would be making just to do the educational piece on that. So that's something that the board will decide if we continue to lead that effort. A survey went out to all of the economic folks within the state, within our county, and I got the results of that survey, and someone from the county had said, or from the Cochise County had said they didn't know what certified sites were, and DDF wasn't reporting that out. And so I'm a bit disappointed, because if you all ever have any questions or hear that we're not doing something, I would ask you to pick up the phone, call me, call one of my board members. We certainly can give you the information on what we're doing. So to that end, certifying Cochise County lands and buildings, one of the requirements on this is that there's 5 acres there's 5 acres or 5,000 square foot, whether you're having a building certified or whether you're having the land certified. And we could tell you that we have 3 certified sites at this point, and 2 of them are bronze. The third one in Benson looks like it's going to be bronze, and there's 2 other projects. One is out in the Pierce Sun Sites area, but they both are, and they meet that requirement. It's a stringent requirement. It doesn't just mean that you have the 5 acres or the 5,000 square foot that needs to be tied into utilities. The utilities need to be X amount of feet away from the property, which becomes an issue. All the infrastructure has to be in there. T1 lines have to be ready to go. It has to be zoned in a certain way. So it just can't be 5 acres that are out there that's not, it's more than shovel ready to be certified site. And then this is deemed by the Arizona Commerce Authority, then deems them as certified sites, and we've come through. So if you populate these onto a map now, you'll see these pieces of property listed. As you all know, I serve on the Greater Arizona Development Authority for GATA, and again, thank you to my board for allowing me to participate in so many of these boards and commissions that have me in Phoenix, but the only way economic development happens for attraction is for me not to be in my office, because we're trying to attract people to that area, and if I'm sitting in my office, then I'm not out speaking about our community and getting the work done. So for GATA, over the next several months, our board meeting, we're having another one later this month, we're going to go back and ask legislator to approve the revitalization of GATA for the next winter. And we're really hoping that this helps some of our smaller communities that'll be able to take advantage of the monies that are coming in and available to those communities. I'm going to spend some time here on some of the boards and commissions that the EDF represents and sits on. I know it's kind of hard to see on the PowerPoint up there, but you have the handout in front of you. So the first one is that I serve as a member of the Public Policy Advisory Commission, and I know that the City of Sierra Vista has their legislative issues in front of them as we do ours and what dictates for us. On this, I serve on a committee in which we set the federal agenda for IEDC, which is the International Economic Development Council, and I sit on a subcommittee of that, which is around small business and entrepreneurship, fitting federal law into that and what we will advocate on there. We are looking at 4 main laws and rules and regulations to be set. One is around improving access to capital, and I will be working again with Mark Schmidt on how do we better that for the SBA and how do those dollars get in. What happens, and Mark can tell you, is every year his goals get changed of what he has to report to, and sometimes that doesn't do our community any favor. So I'll be getting together with Mark and seeing, now that people are certified in manufacturing, certified in import and export, how is that really impacting our community, and what do we need to do around that? So looking at improving the access to capital, looking at innovation. What do we do for the entrepreneur to continue to have them be innovative, and how do we set that up? Taking a look at the tax structure is the third thing for small businesses, and the fourth is broadband. It continues to be an issue not only for rural Arizona, but even for some of the metro areas to actually be able to get high-speed internet where they need that. We know that that's been a problem for many of the businesses in the West End. So again, having that state level and being able to link that into a federal level becomes very important. The second one, I chair the Rural Committee for the Arizona Association of Economic Development, and I also sit on several other committees in which last year we implemented the Southern Arizona Roundtable, in which our mayor spoke at, and we'll be doing again this year. We're having the same thing, and again, having that focus on rural Arizona. Our mission on that, we have an action plan that we've just completed, and the vision of that committee is to communicate and provide professional economic development support to rural communities through events, programs, and moderating, again, and monitoring those legislative issues. So again, something that directly impacts not only our region, but the entire state of Arizona. On the third, I'm a member of the State Aerospace and Defense Commission, spoke about that briefly, and my role there is on the unmanned systems. I'm a member of the Workforce Investment Committee, and on our board, Ron serves as the president of that board, and I'm a member, and so thank you, Ron, for all the work that you do around workforce. Again, that directly impacts our community. and the state of Arizona. And you sit on the state commission of that as well, correct? The State Board and Commission. Number 5, I'm a member of the Arizona States Association, and this is in addition to the AUVSI program. And here what we're doing is bringing all the federal aerospace and aviation policy together and representing all 50 states and trying to get a consortium together of a federal or a foreign investment committee together and see how we really attract companies from outside of the United States. I spoke about GATA, being a member of GATA and the work that we do there. We formed our Southeastern Regional Economic Development Group that serves Bisbee, Douglas, Wilcox, Bowie, Benson, and obviously Sierra Vista. Our next meeting is on the 17th, where we will have someone from the Department of Commerce come down and talk to us about manufacturing and where do we fit into manufacturing if we do, and how does that work? Again, given our resources, given our proximity to Mexico, and quite frankly, our infrastructure, and oftentimes the infrastructure becomes a stumbling block for us because we don't have a lot of what those high-tech companies are looking for. And then, of course, serving as a member of the lobbying management group partnering with Huachuca 50. As we begin to move forward, I wanted to take a moment to talk about this. I think there were some misconceptions with the City Council as to why we did not submit a proposal for the RFP. And I've heard, again, rumors, and I'd like to dispel those. If you have questions, I would appreciate picking up the phone again and calling me and saying, why didn't you? What was the issue? Is there a way to move forward? The EDF is here as a solid partner, and that's what we want to do. We represent the city of Sierra Vista and the economic development that happens within our community. And I think we all realize that. The way the RFP was, it focused much on retention of existing businesses. There was a big piece in it of retail. And if you look through this PowerPoint presentation, you will see nowhere in there that we have done anything with retail. We're charged with attraction and retention of businesses as they pertain to government contracting. And that's what we have done. That's where our strategic plan lines up. So moving forward, we would like to see a work session with the council to ensure the economic success within the community. Our door is open. We work with the Small Business Development Center. And what I've put on here is, look at this. These are nationally recognized partners that we have. In our own backyard, we have nationally recognized partners. The Small Business Development Center is not just known, and what the work that Mark has done is not just known within the state, but it is known throughout the nation. The Aerospace States Association that we work with is known throughout the state. Pima County Economic Development, known throughout the state again, and we work very closely with them, and we're working on some international projects. So this is our mission. This is what we do best. We open that door up to you and leave that next step for communication and setting aside a time where we can sit down and say, how do we best leverage what we all have in this community moving forward? And at this time, I would take any questions that you may have.
Yes, Mr. Reardon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's a very, very salient point about your focus on government business. Because our strategic plan states we need to diversify our economy to maintain our strength in the government sector, but also diversify ourselves in the non-federal sector. That's our strategic plan. So I think your recommendation for us to sit down in a work session in light of that, also in light of the fact what's going on with the major cuts that could come from Fort Huachuca, I think would be an excellent idea. Because if we were expecting you to not go after government contracts and place emphasis on non-federal business, we were mistaken. I think a work session would do wonderful things to get that ironed out. One of the things I wanted to ask about, and you may not be able to tell me because as you stressed, some of these things are bound by non-disclosure agreements and confidentiality, which is pretty normal. You mentioned two companies are interested in our foreign trade zone potential. Can you tell me if any of them are looking at that original 4.3 acre site?
No, they're not.
Okay.
No, they're not. So, yeah, one is in, like I said, one is out in the Hereford area, and one is in Sierra Vista. And the one in Sierra Vista is within the industry, within that industrial park, excuse me.
Right.
But it is not within that original 4.2 acres. And unfortunately, Gary Haymore is not here. We had gone through and looked at that, and I have to tell you, I think that that original parcel has actually been subdivided. Am I not correct, Ron? It was 4 acres, and now I think it's broken into 2 separate acres. So it's not one 4-acre parcel anymore, how it was originally done. And there's quite a bit of history on that foreign trade zone and what had happened. And I think the original intent when that was done, too, is they wanted to do a land swap out near the airport to make that easier, and that didn't happen. So there's a lot of history that happened around that original foreign trade zone. But no, they're not on that original 4.2, which it doesn't exist anymore.
All right. One last question. Now, you've mentioned the term aerospace. Is that synonymous with federal government, or is there private aerospace?
No, please. When I'm speaking about the Aerospace and Defense Commission, I think that's what often happens. People hear that, and in many of the meetings, we spend a lot of time talking about diversifying and separating out those two, because people hear aerospace and defense, and they immediately make the jump to the conclusion that it is based around military because of the word defense, but it isn't. So it can be cybersecurity, it can be robotics. There's a myriad of things that falls under aerospace and defense. And the particular piece, obviously, that has been a natural fit for us has been on the unmanned side. And let me again emphasize that as we work on unmanned, we're talking about the commercial side. So that is diversifying it, not for the military. And again, oftentimes people make that assumption, aerospace and defense, it must be military, and it is not. We're talking about the commercial industry.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Crosby.
Yeah, we just talked about, started off talking about CDBG money that the federal government doesn't actually have. And our mayor talked about defense cuts. And like I've said before, our enemies hope that we can't afford to defend ourselves. And I'd like to point out that whether it's CDBG or defense, it's the same tax money, it's the same debt. With regard to UASs, I would be interested to know what non-tax supported industry might use a UAS, since it would be so much cheaper to just use an aircraft with the camera hanging on it. And I'll let you get back to me
Okay.
there. So when we talk about diversity and diversifying the economy away from the fort, for instance, we also have to include, in my opinion, diversifying away from government-dependent, tax-funded projects.
Right.
When we had OI Inc. here, this entity produced what I considered like the quintessential thinking in the box program of EDS, Feds, and Meds, as she put it. And all of these are rearranging tax money instead of creating wealth. So when I look at what has been the bread and butter for Arizona, so much so that they call it the 5 Cs: copper, climate, cattle, citrus, and cotton, what we're talking about is mining and agriculture.
Correct.
So I'm in favor of creating wealth, not just rearranging it and using our natural resources.
So I'm not sure if there was a question in there, but if there
can
was...
you talked about commercial use of UASs,
Yes.
okay?
Okay.
I've been around them a little bit.
Okay.
And it's been my observation that an aircraft, a standard aircraft with a pilot in it and somebody to operate the machinery can, well, just go ahead.
Well,
Tell me what
Tom,
you think.
I'm sure I'm only allotted a certain amount of time. My board can tell you that I can speak about UASs for hours on end and not get bored with anything that I'm saying. But let me start off with several examples here. I'm not going to start counting them because then I'll mess up on my counting. But they are, one with a piloted, when you're talking about having a regular aircraft with a pilot in it and doing some of that work, you simply cannot do that in some of the industries that we're looking at. And they are non-government industries. Specifically agriculture.
Okay.
So let's talk about agriculture for a second. You can do the dust cropping with a plane, right? With a regular aircraft. However, with a regular aircraft, you cannot get down and test the soil. You cannot measure what is in the soil. You cannot measure how much water is on a certain crop or not. You cannot measure the pesticides or insects that there may be. So what they do with these UASs that are quite small, maybe no bigger than this podium, they put a camera on that, and they have ones that are even smaller that get in between the crops, and they fly down low, and they have sensors on those, on the payloads, that can detect the water, that can detect the heat, that can then measure what type of insect that may be, that can detect what type of soil, whether you need more fertilizer in one area versus another. Because what you're talking about would just go over general and might take a photograph of it all, but it doesn't have the sensors on it. So that's where the UAS comes in.
I'm in favor of anything like that that doesn't involve tax money and rearrangement of wealth as opposed to
This
creation
isn't, and
of wealth.
we're really talking about agriculture. We're talking about, again, our natural resources out here. So what are they? When you're talking about the 5 Cs, I'm a proponent of the 5 Cs, blending the 5 Cs in with TEAM, if you've heard of the new logo of TEAM, of transportation, energy, agriculture, and manufacturing, kind of a blend of the 5 Cs. But so now you're looking back to those 5 Cs of how do you use that, correct? So the ranchers use that. They can send out UAS and let you know if they need to go out and water or fill a
Stock tank.
Thank you, a stock tank. Or they can tell you if there's cattle missing. We're also working with some ranchers on developing technology, so I didn't know that it was a big issue for ranchers here of their cattle being stolen. And so again, you can use a UAS and you can use some of the technology to help those ranchers and farmers in there. You can also use those in the mines so that as you're going in, you can use a UAS to do whatever they do inside the mines, but you can go down in there without risking human life now. So those again are moving away from the taxpayer base that you're talking about and those taxed industries. It's on that free enterprise side. Did I answer your question?
Absolutely,
I feel like
and
you
I'm in
might have
favor
had
of all
another
of that,
one.
so thank you very much.
Okay.
Anybody else?
One more comment after hearing about the 4 Cs and TEAM, which is very exciting. We got to get started.
No, we're behind.
We got to get moving. We had this thing we had, was it Friday with Mr. Barber or Thursday?
It was,
I don't know. The days all run together.
last week,
Last week,
Whatever
last
day it
week,
was,
late,
right?
late last week, late last week.
July 2nd.
July 2nd, this year, yeah. We keep talking about diversifying our economy. We talk about it, we do PowerPoints, we talk about it, and today was a breakthrough. Now that we know what your organization's target is, and it sounds like you've got a great target-rich environment out there, and we also know what other things need to be done now. This work session is going to be vital to get economic developers, yourselves, your board, this council, our economic development manager when they come on board, city management, to figure out what do we need to do. And I sense that the government part, the defense part, is in good hands. We have a good team of horses out there. The Huachuca 50, we have what's going on at the state level now. What we need to do is sit down right here in this city and start saying to ourselves, let's get serious about diversifying our economy. Let's think about Mexico. Let's think about those things that Mr. Crosby talked about that aren't driven by tax dollars or the federal government. And I think today was a major breakthrough for us. We have got to get moving on this, because 2016 is not that far away. 2017 BRAC is not that, if we have a BRAC, and I think we will, that is not that far away. Time is moving. So I think this today was a pivotal point in how do we really get organized for combat, if you will, to look at those things that aren't defense driven.
Tom, and I think another point to that is that we're working on that hasn't made it to the PowerPoint piece is the hospital.
Yeah.
We talk about the new construction of the hospital, but you have to remember there's two clients. There's two target markets. You have your internal customers and you have your external customers. The external customers are the patients. If we lose and continue to lose people from this county and from this area, you're losing your patients. So now how is the hospital going to stay viable without the patients? And then the other is the internal customers, which are your doctors and your employees. So again, you know, we really need to be serious about economic development, because here we've got this brand new hospital that's coming in. You're wanting to attract doctors to it. You're also wanting to attract patients to it. But if we don't have a viable and a strong economic base, where does that leave everyone?
Right.
So you're absolutely right. It's time for us to, and we're behind the 8 ball, but you know, we can get there. We definitely can get there.
Well, the hardest part is what we just did, identifying the problem, identifying the shortfalls and the gaps, and I think we've done a lot today to do that.
Well, you're
And I
welcome.
agree with you about the hospital. We had a chance to tour the hospital a couple weeks ago, and I see that it goes beyond medical.
Yeah.
And I had a chance with Council Member Calhoun about 2 weeks ago to tour the Aegis facility. And we hear the term, you know, call center, as if that's something we don't like. Well, it creates jobs. They're very excited over there about the opportunities before them. And Jim was the guy, what was his name? I can't recall his name, but I said, what would be wrong with Sierra Vista becoming the call center capital of the United States? If that's our goal and vision, then we backward plan from there. The same with the hospital, to become a medical center of excellence for Southwest United States. If that's what we have to do, I think that's what we have to do. So I really appreciate what you told us today, and I think we have nowhere to go but up.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Husky?
Okay, I have just a couple of thoughts on this. You said that you thought we were behind the 8 ball, and I was wondering if you could identify some of the obstacles you think that are keeping us behind in making progress towards the goal of becoming more diversified and also creating a solid base of economic development beyond defense.
Well, and let me clarify by saying behind the 8 ball. My board will tell you we never move fast enough, good enough, far enough, ahead enough, high enough. And that's just mignon. I set the bar way up here, and my board reminds me it's one step at a time in the right direction. But I always say, we should have been here a year ago. We should have been here 3 years ago. We should have been. So a lot of that is mignon, personal statement of being behind. But I think, as Tom said today, and I'm glad, thank you so much for your comments, Tom, that let's honestly move forward and work together, and not this, we're talking about this and you're here and we're there, but we want to see a true partnership move forward, much like Mark and I have done. And our organizations have worked together to bring PTAC in, to work with industry, to be partners. The things that we're doing without the region, we would love to see that we're not focusing on our differences of what we have, but we're leveraging our natural strengths that each one of our organizations and our partners brings to the table, and that we've identified those, and then we've moved forward with that identification of what we really truly can be, without saying we're going to be the next manufacturing hub of Arizona. I mean, we have many things that we simply cannot be, because we don't have the infrastructure. I mean, when we looked at certified sites, just trying to do a certified site program, it's very hard to find 5 acres that have the infrastructure that we need, or a building that's already existing that has 5,000 square feet. You know, so there's certain things that we just cannot be. And I think we really need to think about, look at what we can be realistically and where we are, and what do we build on our natural assets, to include tourism. And we didn't talk about that in this because, again, that's not one of our charters. But as you mentioned, tourism, when we spoke with Pima County, that's a huge thing that they want to focus in on and leverage with Cochise County and Pima County, to have tourists and day travelers spend extra days within the southern Arizona region. So I think there's many opportunities to leverage. We just need to do a better job of leveraging those opportunities and those partnerships that we have out there and those partners.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Well, thank you very much, Mignon. We appreciate it. It was a great briefing.
Thank you.